But wait, there's something I haven't told you yet about that envelope. Something that made Marcus's hands shake as he read it. The postmark was from last week. Last week. How does a dead man mail a letter? The old man handed him the envelope and whispered, "Your brother isn't dead." Marcus stared at the photograph inside. Two Marines, arms around each other, smiling. One was him, 20 years younger. The other was Danny, his brother who had supposedly died in an explosion in 2004. But on the back, in Danny's handwriting, "If you're reading this, I've been waiting. Room 3B, Elmwood Street. 20 years of silence. 20 years of guilt. And now this." What Marcus discovered behind that red door would change everything he thought he knew about loss, brotherhood, and the price of classified missions. Welcome to Quiet Tales Studio. Before we continue, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button. He never spoke. 20 years behind the wheel of Route 47, and Marcus Thompson had perfected the art of silence. The morning shift knew him as the driver who nodded once when you paid your fare. The evening commuters recognized his steady hands on the wheel, his eyes always focused ahead. But no one knew that beneath his calm exterior lived a former Marine who had left his voice somewhere on a classified mission overseas. The bus depot was quiet at 5:30 a.m. Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, walked past the other drivers to bus 347. His pre-trip inspection was methodical, precise. The routine never changed. It was the only thing that kept the memories at bay. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. "Thompson, you're clear for Route 47. First pickup in 10 minutes. Marcus keyed the mic once. Click. That was his response to everything. One click for yes, two for no. The other drivers had stopped trying to make conversation years ago. They assumed he was just antisocial. They had no idea he was protecting them from the darkness he carried. By 9 p.m., the bus was nearly empty. The route felt different in darkness, street lights creating pools of yellow. This was Marcus's last run before days off. At University Avenue, an elderly man climbed aboard. Marcus glanced up as the man fed coins into the fare box. Something familiar about his posture, the way he moved with deliberate precision. Thin, maybe 70, wearing a worn brown jacket. "End of the line," the man said quietly. The bus rolled through suburbs, stopping occasionally. By the mall, only the old man remained. Marcus pulled into the terminal and set the parking brake. But the old man didn't move. He sat quietly, hands folded over his canvas bag. Marcus checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. "End of the line," Marcus called out, breaking his usual silence. The old man walked toward the front. As he passed Marcus's seat, he stopped and reached into his jacket. "This is for you, son." He placed a manila envelope on the dashboard, worn, yellowed, sealed with red wax. Across the front, Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, USMC. Marcus stared at the envelope. No one had called him by his rank in 20 years. No one knew his full name except the depot manager. But here's what made his blood run cold. The postmark was from 3 days ago. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. When he looked up, the old man was gone. The door was closing and Marcus caught a glimpse of the brown jacket disappearing into shadows. Route 47 ran from downtown through the suburbs to the mall. Marcus knew every stop, every passenger's routine. Mrs. Chen boarded at 7:15. The college kid got on at University Avenue. The construction workers climbed aboard at the industrial park. They were his responsibility. Every face in his rearview mirror, every person who trusted him to get them safely to their destination. It was the closest thing to a mission he'd had since leaving the Corps. The morning passed like every other. Marcus ate lunch alone. A sandwich, coffee from a thermos his sister had given him. She still called sometimes, left voicemails he rarely returned. The afternoon brought different passengers, teenagers, elderly couples, workers heading home. Marcus watched them all, noting their body language, always aware, always watching for threats that might never come. By 9 p.m., the bus was nearly empty. The route felt different in darkness, streetlights creating pools of yellow. This was Marcus's last run before days off. At University Avenue, an elderly man climbed aboard. Marcus glanced up as the man fed coins into the fare box. Something familiar about his posture, the way he moved with deliberate precision. Thin, maybe 70, wearing a worn brown jacket. "End of the line," the man said quietly. The old man walked toward the front. As he passed Marcus's seat, he stopped and reached into his jacket. "This is for you, son." He placed a manila envelope on the dashboard, worn, yellowed, sealed with red wax. Across the front, Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, USMC. Marcus stared at the envelope. No one had called him by his rank in 20 years. No one knew his full name except the depot manager. But here's what made his blood run cold. The postmark was from 3 days ago. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. When he looked up, the old man was gone. The door was closing and Marcus caught a glimpse of the brown jacket disappearing into shadows. Marcus sat alone, staring at the envelope. His hands shook as he reached for it. The wax seal bore the insignia of the 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, his old unit. Inside was a single black and white photograph. 2 Marines in combat gear, arms around each other, smiling despite exhaustion. Marcus recognized himself, 20 years younger, before the silence, before the guilt. The other Marine was Danny Thompson, his younger brother. Danny had died in an IED explosion during a classified operation in 2004. Marcus had been on standby at base when the radio call came through. By the time his squad reached the scene, nothing remained but twisted metal. But there was writing on the back. In Danny's handwriting, "If you're reading this, it means someone kept their promise. Look for the red door on Elmwood Street, room 3B. I've been waiting." Marcus read the words 3 times. His brother's handwriting, his brother's words. But Danny was dead. Marcus had attended the memorial service, watched them fold the flag. He pulled out his phone and searched for Elmwood Street. Across town, near the hospital, Marcus looked at the clock. 10:15 p.m. He was supposed to return the bus to the depot. Instead, he started the engine. Elmwood Street was lined with small apartment buildings. Marcus drove slowly, scanning addresses. Number 47 was a 3-story brick building with a faded red door under a flickering porch light. He parked across the street and sat for a moment. His brother was dead. He had seen the casualty report, spoken to the chaplain, grieved for 20 years. This had to be some kind of cruel joke. But the handwriting was real. The photograph was real. And the old man had known his rank, his full name, his unit. Marcus climbed out and crossed the street. 3B was on the 2nd floor. He climbed narrow stairs, each step feeling like tremendous effort. At the top was a green door, no nameplate, no doorbell. Marcus raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. What if this was real? What if Danny was alive? Before he could knock, the door opened. The man was older, thinner, with gray threading through brown hair and lines around his eyes. But the smile was the same. The eyes were the same. It was Danny Thompson, 20 years older. "Hello, Marcus," Danny said quietly. "I've been waiting a long time to explain." The apartment was small and spartanly furnished. Danny moved to a kitchenette and put on coffee while Marcus stood frozen. "You can come in," Danny said. "I know this is a lot to process." Marcus stepped inside. "They said you were dead. I saw the casualty report. There was a memorial service." Danny turned around, expression serious. "I was supposed to be dead. The explosion was real, but I wasn't in that vehicle. I was pulled for a classified operation 3 hours before patrol. The Army needed everyone to believe I was KIA, including you." "Why?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Because the mission required someone who was officially dead. Someone who could move through certain areas without being tracked. I've been working deep cover for 20 years, Marcus. Classified operations in locations I can't even name." Danny poured coffee and handed a cup to Marcus. "I volunteered to stay dead. The work was important. Lives were at stake. But I never stopped thinking about you, about how much my death would hurt you." Marcus sank into the chair. 20 years. You let me think you were dead for 20 years. I didn't have a choice. The mission parameters were clear. No contact with family. But the assignment is ending, Marcus. I'm being brought back in from the cold. Danny sat facing his brother. "I heard about what happened to you after I died. How you stopped talking to people, isolated yourself. I'm sorry, Marcus. You carried guilt when you didn't need to. How did you find me? I've been keeping tabs for years. I knew you drove Route 47, knew your schedule. Tonight was the first time I was cleared to make contact. The man who gave you the envelope, he's my handler. This is my official reintegration." Marcus stared at his coffee. "So what happens now?" "Now we try to be brothers again. I can't give you back 20 years, but I can try to make up for lost time." Marcus looked up at Danny, seeing the same earnest expression his little brother had worn as a child. Except now that little brother was a man who had spent 2 decades in the shadows. "I stopped talking after you died," Marcus said quietly. "I blamed myself for not being there, for not protecting you. I haven't had a real conversation with anyone in 20 years. Danny nodded. "I know, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner, but we can start now. We can rebuild what we lost." Marcus didn't return to the depot that night. He called in sick for the first time in 8 years. Then he spent the night on Danny's couch, listening to 20 years of stories that could never be written down. Danny had been to places that existed only in classified briefings. He had prevented attacks, gathered intelligence, lived a dozen different identities. But through it all, he had carried the guilt of letting his family believe he was dead. "I wanted to contact you so many times," Danny said, as the sun came up, "especially after Mom died. I wanted to be at her funeral, wanted to comfort you, but the mission always came first." Marcus understood. In the military, the mission always came first. It was what made them effective soldiers, but also what broke them as human beings. "What do you want to do now?" Marcus asked. Danny smiled. "I want to ride your bus route. I want to see the life you've built, understand who you've become. And maybe, if you're willing, I'd like to help you start talking to people again." Marcus laughed for the first time in years. "You always were the one who could make me do things I didn't want to do." "Little brother privilege," Danny said. "It doesn't expire." That afternoon, Marcus returned to work for his evening shift, but this time, he wasn't alone. Danny sat in the front seat, wearing civilian clothes and carrying a day pass. As passengers boarded, Marcus found himself nodding more, even managing quiet good evenings. Mrs. Chen looked surprised when Marcus asked how her grandchildren were doing. The college kid actually took off his headphones when Marcus warned him about construction delays. By the end of the shift, Marcus had spoken more words than he had in the previous month. It wasn't much by normal standards, but for him, it was a breakthrough. "You're different already," Danny observed as they walked to Marcus's car. "I spent 20 years being angry at myself for failing you," Marcus said. "Now I don't have to carry that anymore." They drove through the city in comfortable silence, two brothers who had found each other after being lost in different kinds of wars. The route that had once been Marcus's refuge was now the path that had led him back to his family. At a red light, Marcus looked over at his brother, older, changed by years of classified missions, but still recognizably the kid who had followed him around when they were children. "Danny," Marcus said quietly, "welcome home." Danny smiled, the same easy grin that had gotten them both into trouble when they were young. "Thanks, Marcus. It's good to be back." The light turned green, and Marcus drove forward into a future that no longer felt empty or silent. For the first time in 20 years, he had someone to talk to, someone who understood what it meant to carry secrets, to live with guilt, to do your duty even when it cost you everything. Route 47 would still be there tomorrow, with its familiar stops and regular passengers. But now, Marcus Thompson had a reason to speak again, a reason to reconnect with the world he had spent so long hiding from. Sometimes the dead come back to life. Sometimes brothers find their way home. And sometimes the last passenger on the last bus of the night carries exactly what you need to heal. As Quiet Tales Studio reminds us, the most powerful stories often begin in silence and end with hope. Subscribe to hear more stories of hidden connections, unexpected reunions, and the quiet heroes who ride the night routes of our lives, carrying secrets that can change everything.